Hi everybody, this is the Empowered Target, and it is a very cloudy, cool evening here in the Midwest. Feels quite nice out for once with no humidity. I just finished dinner, and relaxing in my own home is, according to my neighbors and the city, against the regulations. So, with the noise harassment and with all the other nonsense that goes on around here, to be able to sit in my own backyard like I used to be able to on my deck and have a beer and just relax is impossible. It's impossible because it's not part of their plan of forcing me out of my home. They want to make every situation just the most miserable situation for me, to get me out of here. Excuse me. So what I wanted to talk about today was how these people use their children to do the dirty work, and how it saddens me. And whenever they hear that something saddens me, they intensify it. They do it more because the goal is, and this is a complete and absolute narcissistic characteristic, where if someone's goal is to bother you and they find out that it's working, they up their game. They intensify it. They do it more. So here I am recording a video about how these people use their kids to do their dirty work, and I'm sure it's going to intensify. But it's a very important subject because to me it's child abuse. And let me just give you a few examples. So you all know I'm a walker. I walk through the neighborhood, and there is a family around the corner who, I don't know most of the people that live in this neighborhood. And I'm very visible because I do walk, but I've never met a lot of these people. We haven't spoken or whatever. So all of a sudden I started to notice these, I'm going to call them group of kids. I wanted to call them a gang because their intentions were bad. But it was, some young boys that kept walking all over my grass and hanging out around my car and, just definitely trying to cause some trouble. So I would talk to them, and it was just consistent. I'd say they were tweens, 13, 14, 12. Their ages varied, but they were young. They were also hacking into my cameras. And it was just causing me a lot of stress. So since I knew where they lived, I went over and talked to their parents. And their parents, this woman, pretended like she did not know what was going on. I knew, because I had said to the kids, did your parents put you up to this? And of course they did. These kids don't know me, but they would be walking on the sidewalk, and as soon as they'd get in front of my house, they'd get all over the grass, and then they'd pass and be back on the sidewalk. It was directed at me, and it was very obvious. So that was the pattern of behavior. And it's really funny because things didn't really change after that conversation, but I kind of had an attitude adjustment after that. And I was walking through the neighborhood past their house, and they were standing in the middle of the island right where they live, and they were playing football. So I asked them to throw me the football, and we just started a game of football. I'm kind of a tomboy. And we were throwing the football back and forth, and it changed the whole dynamic. So I quickly learned that the more upset I would get, the more they would do it, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows the story, to try to ignore stuff. There are some other kids in the neighborhood. And by the way, all these kids are involved in hacking of my cameras as well. And yes, I can prove it. And it's so sad because some are as young as 4 and 5 years old. And there are 2 kids that live down the street that are adopted. And before they were adopted, they were just living with their foster mom, and I adore them. They were brother and sister, or are brother and sister, and we always had an excellent relationship. And when all of the slander started about me, This poor girl, who was probably 9 or 10 at the time, she approached me and she said, so-and-so is saying all this bad stuff about you and trying to get me to hate you. And I told her that I thought you were really nice. And I don't know why they're being so mean to you. And so there's the honesty of children, and I wanted to hug her for that. And what I said to her was, adults can be really mean, and they're being bullies, and it's just jealousy, and you just need to ignore it. Just ignore it and feel the way that you want to feel. Don't ever feel pressured into feeling the way somebody else wants you to feel. You're the captain of your ship, basically, is what I told her. And, I've been nothing but a good influence towards these kids because I love children. But as the kids got older, they were brainwashed and poisoned against me because no one in the neighborhood is allowed to speak to me or be kind to me. All relationships have to be severed. And that's the way it's been. So now they went over to the dark side. And it's very sad. But, the males that live in this neighborhood, there's a single father of, I think it's 2 boys, that lives in the neighborhood who I have a video of him stalking my security cameras. And it's very obnoxious. And I barely know this guy. But again, I'm visible. I walk all the time. So they know what I look like and they see me. And I say hi and I'm very friendly. But I don't know, if they take that a certain way or not. But what I noticed is, as the kids got older, they started pulling that same nonsense where they'd be riding their bikes along the sidewalk, and as soon as they got in front of my house, they'd ride up on my grass and then go back down onto the sidewalk. And as soon as I got to my house, they would disrespect my property and then respect everybody else's. So I saw that the intention was towards me, and this has been going on for quite a few years now. The goal has always been to deface my property. And again, this is an issue of jealousy. And yes, I'm targeted. But these people don't need to be paid or they don't need to be incentivized because the jealousy has been here for the 20 years that I've lived here. I've worked very hard by myself to take care of my home, and I've done an excellent job. And that seems to bother them. So, and it's because I'm a woman. They're not going to let a woman outdo them. It's too emasculating. Anyway, back to the kids. So, I grew up with a very narcissistic mother who was an opportunist, and there were several times throughout my life where I noticed that she would use me. And she would be nice when she wanted me to do her bidding for her, or do her a favor, and then it was, evil Ethel after that. I was being used, and I didn't understand it as a child, but I do now as an adult. And I see that with all the kids in this neighborhood, how they're being used by their own parents. Their parents are teaching them to stalk illegally, hack into my cameras and stalk an older woman, a woman old enough to be their grandmother. They are teaching them to bully and gang up. And what they don't understand is how this is going to deeply affect them in their lives. Because the truth is, this is the way these people get their way, is by ganging up on people and bullying people. And these are grown-ass adults. So this is generational abuse and generational bullying. And it's a mean and a mode of communication for these people because they are certainly not mature enough to have an adult conversation, talk things out, express their feelings. They just attack you. So you don't have to do anything wrong. It's just how these weak people establish dominance, because that's their goal, is to constantly establish dominance, and they do it by terrorizing you, which is exactly what the adults do, which is exactly what the gang stalking program and the COINTELPRO program is about. Bullying, ganging up, Here comes the planes and the drones again. And leaving somebody with no options. So these kids are being used by their own parents. And I see it all the time. And what that tells me is that their priority is to get a reaction out of me. How it affects their kids doesn't even matter. The detrimental effect they're having on their own children doesn't matter. As long as they get the reaction from me that they are looking for. And it is the saddest thing I've ever seen. Because these kids think it's a game. These kids think it's a game. And I was walking and I saw this kid and I saw his phone. And I was trying to get closer and closer to it. And it was clear that he was on a website or something showed on his phone that wasn't supposed to be there. Let's just put it that way. And it was pretty shocking. These parents have no consideration for what they're doing to their children. And the end goal is to destroy me, to destroy my home. By the way, these kids also have technology on their phones to take shots at my house. Because the pattern is this. You'll hear a shot, I'll hear a shot, and then the kids will ride their bike by. I hear something hit my house, I call it a shot, and a car will drive by. So on and so forth. So you connect that sound with the person driving by or the person riding their bike, or, you know, if the neighborhood's really quiet and all of a sudden my neighbor comes outside and I hear something hit the house, it's a very safe assumption that it's probably my neighbor that's doing it. So that's kind of the pattern. And these kids are so young. Their brains aren't even fully developed. And they're being taught to be foot soldiers and used to be foot soldiers in a human trafficking ring. That's what these kids are being groomed for. And it is a heinous form of child abuse. And it is a sad reality that the priorities of these so-called adults are so messed up, so screwed up, that they will go to any lengths to destroy me and my property. Now, a lot of it is also they've been instructed to do this. So fear may be involved as well. They don't look like they're afraid. They look like they're enjoying themselves. So this whole program, it corrupts everybody, including the children. And there's no protection. I mean, what parent doesn't protect their own child? What parent teaches their child to commit felonies? And I've said this before in posts, and I'm going to say it again. It is unbelievable to me what lengths people will go to, and the dirty work that they will do when they think and they assume that there's no consequence. And most of these people, aka narcissists, have not had consequences in their lives. They've never had people set boundaries and say, that's not okay. And, you know, I had a thought about all these people that are recruiting other people, you know, with the street theater and all the other nonsense behavior that goes on in this neighborhood since this program started. And my thought was this: is there not one voice of reason in anybody's life that says, this is not okay? This is a horrible thing to do to somebody, and I'm not going to get involved. And I don't know what the conversation is prior to the behavior, but what I will say is that there doesn't seem to be a voice of reason. There's no mature adult. You know, everybody's got an angel on their shoulder, and on the other shoulder they have the devil. These people don't have the angel. It's just the devil. They do the devil's work, dirty work all the time. I don't see kindness. I don't see goodness. I don't see any of that. I just see some really bad, mean, dirty behavior. And of course the kids are picking up on that. But there is no voice of reason that says, this is not okay. And I am afraid for the examples that I am setting for my own children. And a lot of these people, like the nasty person behind me, you know, her grandson robbed his own great-grandmother. If that gives you an idea of the corruption in this neighborhood and in these families. And this bad behavior occurs because nobody sets boundaries. Nobody is that voice of reason that says this is not okay and puts their foot down. It's called discipline. Nobody says, do not, you know, when I first moved in, the same family behind me, these kids would just jump my fence and run through my yard like they owned it. And I finally said, your kids don't belong in my yard. That's trespassing. And this is when I had a 3.5-foot fence. But these people have no respect for anybody. They just do whatever they want, and they don't care how it affects anybody, including their own children. So to me, that's a very strong message that wake up. Look at the messages and the examples that you are setting for your children. They are illegally hacking into someone's security cameras. They are stalking. They possess illegal equipment on their phones, doing damage to a person that they don't even know, bullying, ganging up. I mean, these are young kids. So I hope that people hear this and wake up. Wake up to the fact that your behavior has negative effects on other people. And even though you don't care, I promise you, you will when your kids end up in jail or in juvie, one of the other. Y'all have a great night.